So since I first put out my initial video regarding the Shannon Sharpe situation with the sexual abuse lawsuit and allegations, a lot of twists and turns and things have unfolded since then. Such as Shannon Sharpe himself has come out, and addressed, the whole situation, and gave what was going on right out of the horse's mouth. And Shannon Sharpe's put it in his own words and said this is nothing more than a shakedown, essentially, and them trying to extort and get money up out of you. And he even came out with the name of this alleged Jane Doe, and he said that it's Gabby, which is a white Latino woman, and he said that Tony Buzbee might be releasing 30 seconds of a, sex clip of, Shannon Sharpe and this woman, Gabby. He said call for Tony Buzbee to actually release the clip in its full totality. Don't just release 30 seconds of it. So it showed that Shannon Sharpe, ain't hiding. He ain't got nothing to be afraid of. He's actually standing up head on and facing these sexual abuse allegations. And it's also being said that Shannon Sharpe and his Gabby, done some racialized role playing and did role playing in general. You know what I mean? And with racialized role playing, this is absolutely and positively a no-no, because what this does is, in a white supremacist society, is it gives, justification for racial stereotypes in the white supremacist mindset, and it's also, used as an excuse to target black folks. So I don't rock with that whole, uh, racial role play. Shannon Sharpe definitely and this woman were engaged in some weird things, but and I don't, I'm not putting a cape on for Shannon Sharpe, no way, but I just don't like, black folks being railroaded and bogus things thrown up on black folks to where though black people are being exploited. Once they at the top of their game, because I know, truth be told, the hardship it takes for a black person to even come into some success because Shannon Sharpe had done several things, over the years that I don't rock with, such as, he said some, things I didn't like regarding black women, and I don't even rock with him, laying white and with non-black women, so in that regard, I don't rock with that, but I'm just not for, black people in general being railroaded and thrown up under the bus, and racialized, targeted like that, and Tony Buzbee, if you ask me, he ain't nothing more than a, money hungry, suspected white supremacist who's out to, exploit black men at all costs. And, he's made a career off of exploiting and, targeting black men, truth be told, and, this is why I say, brothers and sisters alike, be careful when you land with non-black people, because the dynamic of power changes in their favor, when you land with these, white and non-black people, you know what I mean? And even if you land with a white Latino woman, because when things go south, they'll be up in the courtroom, especially these white women, and non-black women, they'll be up in the courtroom. Um, Even historically, when the thing goes south, the relationship goes south, you don't want to be with them no more, yelling and hollering rape. In white supremacist society, why, I don't rock with them throwing trumped up charges of rape and bogus charges of rape allegations on brothers, because in white supremacist society, they've historically done this to black males, at the top of their game, and black males in general, because white supremacist society has a sick infatuation with, trying to, make black males, with this false narrative that they just going around raping white women and taking sex from white women at will, and this directly goes back, to, the slave plantation in 1900s early movies, you know what I mean? Because, white women on them plantations would throw themselves at brothers. Then when they get caught, they yell and scream rape, and in the 1900s, they was coming out with films depicting, black males in a position running around here hitting white women up over the head and just taking sex from them at will. And I don't rock with that whole narrative, because it's a false narrative. And in a system of racism, white supremacy, that's used as a way to target black males, so I don't rock with that narrative, of them trying to throw bogus, trumped up rape charges and sexual allegations on black men. I get pushback and resistance to this kind of thing, and I think, Shannon Sharpe's team, was also said to have, also, I guess, tried to, quietly, keep this thing on the hush hush by offering up $10 million. And I don't know why he would go ahead and do that if that was really the case, because you offering up, $10 million to this, alleged, Gabby and, her people. Why would you do that? Because you offering up $10 million, that's like, putting a bullseye on your back, because, I know you're trying to maybe keep it from going public, but I don't, you doing that is like becoming, fresh blood in the water, around the sea full of sharks. Because what this will do is, people left and right will be out to target you and, swindle you and, put bogus things on you because they know you just going to easily settle, So I don't see why he would, go about it that route if he did choose to go about it that route. And there was also, almost forgot to add some kind of, 30 seconds of a, clip between Shannon Sharpe and this, not a clip, but a phone call, 30 seconds or so, a couple seconds released where Shannon Sharpe was talking about actually, choking this woman, and if Shannon Sharpe was role playing, that could have been all, a role play, them having a role play dynamic on the phone. You never know because what they just trying to do is condemn Shannon Sharpe right now in the eyes of the public by any means necessary, but the conversation wasn't released in its full totality. So I question, the release of that, conversation. So it's just a lot of things, that's unfolded now as we speak. But brothers and sisters got to be careful laying with these non-black people because in the system of racism, white supremacy, the power dynamic shifts in their favor 9 times out of 10 historically when brothers, lay down with these non-black women, in general, they in the courthouse trying to get you for everything you got. At the end of the day, when the relationship goes sour, and these white women, they throw around these bogus rape charges and try to, put them on brothers to where though they could ruin, their career for the entirety of their life because, nothing to stick to you more than, you having some kind of, bogus sexual stuff on your jacket. That thing will follow you the entirety of your life, But in closing, um, it's definitely, this is definitely, crazy. And I don't, rock with Shannon Sharpe, in all of his moves, but I for damn sure don't rock with, innocent black people being railroaded and thrown up under the bus because, if we let certain things go like this sets a precedence to where though they think they can do this to all black society. So I get pushback and resistance to this kind of thing, because I know, historically, that white women have, going out, and gave themselves to brothers willingly and consensually, and then when the relationship goes south, that brother said he don't want to be with her, or their relationship gets exposed to their community and family members, they running and and crying and yelling, screaming, raping that he took something. So yeah, I don't rock with that whole narrative. And if you ask me, Tony Buzbee ain't nothing more than a money chasing, money hungry, suspected white supremacist. And I think, Tony Buzbee need to be disbarred. We need to see if we could get some kind of, or, a brother that, he's targeted in the past need to, put some kind of, thing together to where though they getting him debarred for, the racial targeting and, bogus attacks and trying to exploit, black males in that, industry, because that's only people that he targets, he's made a career off of, exploiting and, putting bogus charges on black men, so they need to have them disbarred. And I question, Tony Buzbee. And, since I'm questioning Tony Buzbee, I question, anyone who would have Tony Buzbee representing them. Just my thoughts on the matter, but Tony Buzbee ain't nothing more than a suspected white supremacist who needs to be disbarred. Peace.